Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Nerds Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Royal Smith. I'm the owner of Royal Legal Solutions, your one-stop shop for everything asset protection, tax, and legal. I am here with Lauren Cohen, Esquire. She is an international legal and real estate expert. She helps people that are looking to immigrate from Canada and other countries. And she has a very unique bent to what she does because she's leveraging real estate investing into how it can help you with your immigration. So I'm really excited to welcome Lauren onto the show today, because this is going to be like a show of marriage between two different fields of law and how do they relate to each other, and how does that tie into what kind of assets and financial strategy you can do that can help you with a host of issues. So a lot of synergy and a lot of leverage in today's episode. So Lauren, thanks for coming onto the show. And for everybody that doesn't know you and the work that you've been doing to help people immigrate to the United States, what do you think is important for our audience of real estate investors and entrepreneurs to know about you?
I've been there. I've been there and done that. I think one of the things, I just had a gentleman reach out to me literally just before we got on, and he heard me on a colleague's podcast, actually one of the gentlemen I just introduced you to, Scott. And he said, I want to work with you because you're Canadian and you get it. And I said, that's exactly right. They call me the Canadian Whisperer now. I'm not exclusively the Canadian Whisperer, but I am from Canada. I am in the United States. I'm a dual citizen, and I truly have been there and done that. My now, thank God, ex-husband was deported on the way back from our honeymoon. He was February 2nd, 2007. He was expeditiously removed and then deported and barred from entry. And that was a really nice way to end our honeymoon. 13 years ago, right? 14 now. But who's counting? And to be honest with you, that experience, I was in the process at the time of getting my green card. I've been through all the different visa channels and everything, and I was in the process of getting my green card. And I just thought it was going to be a given, you know, he'd come, we'd get married, everything would be fine. Didn't know that much about immigration at the time. So I learned the hard way, it wasn't so fine. And now my goal from there was to find a path to prevent others from experiencing similar fate, not just from like marriage stuff, but just in general, because when you're dealing with investing across borders, you're dealing with a lot more than you are when you're dealing with investing, you know, within the US or within Canada or within whatever country. And you have to look at both sides, whether you're American investing into France or Spain or Italy or Honduras, or you're from all those countries and more coming into the US and going to Scott so that he can figure out how to protect your assets. But you also have to figure out how to make sure that you're legally allowed to do what you're doing and cross those borders painlessly.
Yeah, I think that's right. And when it comes into how do you navigate those systems, right? It's because it's multiple different systems. There's an asset system, there's a legal system, there's also tax implications that come into it. Then there's like the amount of flexibility you can actually have with any of the decisions that you make. And so I think that's where it really starts to pay to have professionals come into it. Personally, for me, is because it's too many hats to try to figure out on my own whenever I'm looking at some of the things like this. And I bet everybody listening to this podcast, if they're in that same kind of zone, they're thinking about the same thing. They're probably in there feeling like, hey, well, I've tried to look into this. This feels like it's a lot. I'm having to contact a lot of different professionals and try to quarterback it on myself, and maybe feeling a little frustrated about it. And that's why I wanted Lauren to come onto the show today, because she actually has a systematic process, step by step, of what you need to consider in each different step, and like what are the key questions that you have to answer in those steps to be able to know that that piece of the puzzle is taken care of. So by the time that you complete those steps, you know that you've done everything correctly and you've followed the system for repeatable success that Lauren has crafted. Right. So Lauren, can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with these steps? Like, how did this come about?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to also say that the other day I interviewed Scott for my podcast, and literally almost word for word what he was saying about his approach to practicing law and working with clients and servicing clients was literally the same as mine, just a little bit in a different twist. And so I think that that's why we resonate so well. So it's kind of been an interesting journey. I've worked with real estate investors for a very long time, helping them get visas, helping them invest. I've been an investor myself. I am an investor. I'm a realtor and I'm a lawyer in 2 countries. So all of these kind of things, and I'm actually now studying for my mortgage license, but let's not talk about that. That's a little crazy. So with all of these things, over COVID, really, it made me realize, and joining EXP, which is an international cloud-based real estate brokerage, I literally held my license for 12 years, almost dormant. I did nothing with my real estate license. I would refer here or there, but I never really did much. I wasn't building a business around it. Yet I was working with real estate investors that were building businesses and potentially getting visas, and just missing that link. And then COVID happened, and I started speaking about different matters related to bringing in foreign investors, and how realtors can do better by bringing in foreign investors, and how you can close more deals, and how you can do this. And then I realized that, I know a path to get an immigration visa through real estate. And a lot of lawyers and a lot of people that are in this space don't understand that path, and they think that there's not an avenue or a path, and they think, oh, it's too passive, and it could be. But then I said, okay, let's figure out how to create this model that will work. He's actually not a client because he got his visa before we met, but I have a friend, and he said, you have to make this seamless. You have to make this so that my friend Joe Smith in Toronto says to you, Lauren, just take me through the process. I don't want to think. I don't want to figure out X, Y, Z, or Z. I want you to take me from A to Z seamlessly. And I want you to show me how to do it. So I said, okay, there's got to be a way to do that. So I created 10 steps to immigrate through real estate. And the first 8 of those steps are applicable whether you're immigrating or not. Because the reality is, no matter if you're investing across borders or you're planning to immigrate, you still have to look at 8 of these 10 steps to do that investment successfully. Whether you have a minimum threshold or not, whether you have a number of doors you're vying to buy or not, whether you have a strategy or not. I'm sorry, actually, that's the key, is that you need a strategy. And without that strategy, one piece of which, or many pieces of which actually you provide, you're done. You're going to have a couple of properties, and then you'll be, blown to pieces, unfortunately, because you're not putting the right protections in place. And so many people do that. So that's why I created the 10 steps to immigrate through real estate.
Oh, it's beautiful. What I love about it is that the first 8 steps are about for anybody that is just going to be buying assets across the border, and that we just have those final two steps in there that is for immigration purposes. So I think that you have a slide deck here. So if anybody's listening,
I am going to share this, and I'll tell you the truth, Scott. I haven't even launched this formally. I mean, this is ready to go, but it's just so big that I haven't even launched it. So this is like its virgin voyage. So we'll pretend it's like a cruise ship going back out from the dock.
Yeah.
So here we go. So this is I should share my screen.
We're going to be having the video of this recording, guys, as we walk through it. We're going to do our best to talk through it in terms of for everybody listening to the podcast. But if you're wanting to see these visuals, then what you need to do is to go to our YouTube channel, and then to be able to find this episode in our YouTube channel to be able to see this, because these diagrams are beautiful. The diagrams and the layouts that are here, guys, you're going to want to see that.
Thank you. And I'm happy to share them as well, Scott. And I think I shared it with you, but I will do so again. And by the way, 2 Canadians worked with me on this, my sales person and her daughter, who's a graphic designer. So there you go. It's all about Canadians every single day for me. They're freezing to death in Calgary right now. All right. So this is my 10 steps to immigrate through real estate. Now, number 1, even though it's about a recommended investment really oriented to a visa, the reality is that you're not going to want to start a real estate investment portfolio without figuring out how much you want to invest. So that's why the first 8 of these are relevant to investing across borders, whether you're immigrating or not. So the minimum investment, I'm going to talk a little bit focused on the visa side, but remember that we can modify this, and the key is developing a comprehensive strategy, again, a blueprint for you to invest across borders. It's not just like, oh, let's come in and set up an LLC, which won't work for Canadians anyway, and invest in a property in Florida. No, please don't do that. You'll end up having to go and fix everything later, and it's always going to be a challenge. So, all right. So the first step is figure out how much you have for a down payment. So in an ideal world, you're going to want to invest out of pocket 150 to 200. There's no hard and fast rule in terms of the visa. It's not like EB5 where it had a minimum investment. This is just a guideline that we like to follow, because if real estate is a little more challenging to qualify you, because they say, well, it's not at risk, your money's not at risk. And in a visa situation, they want your money to be at risk. So the actual investment threshold is a little higher, but that doesn't mean you have to put all the cash in at the get-go. And you can also get financing. So I have financing partners, we have all of those elements in place so that we can get you the financing, make sure that we have enough access to cash to get you in the door and start developing the portfolio. Recommended number 2, 5 or more doors.
Let me just ask one quick question about that, Lauren, before we jump to number 2 in here. So when we're talking about like the 150 to 200,000 in cash, that's like how much you have like in your bank account that you need to be ready to place inside of the United States at the outset of this, but maybe you don't have to do it all at the same time. Is that right?
Well, no, the 150 to 200, you should probably have invested at the time of application. So the money you need to, the business has to be a going concern at the time of application. But the key is that you may be purchasing property for, let's say, 5, 6, 700,000 total, but putting up the 150 to 200. And again, everything is all discretionary here. There is not, as I say, there's not a specific number. It's a substantial investment in a non-marginal business. So we know as lawyers that those are terms of art that are subject to interpretation, and they're interpreted differently depending on the business. So the more risky the business, the less you might have to invest. That's the reality, okay?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Cool, let's jump to number 2.
Okay, so number 2 is recommended 5 or more doors. I like to see at least 5 doors because it turns it into more of a commercial investment. And this is not 5 single family homes. That's not going to work. You want to look at Airbnbs, commercial properties, multifamily, things that actually involve running a business, because the key is that a passive real estate investor is never going to qualify. But an active investor that needs to be running a business and turns this hobby of real estate investing into a true business, that's when you can qualify. So we have to turn a passive business into an active business. And there's possibility of investing in a property management company, or maybe some other type of small franchise that complements what you're doing. There's options to invest in self-storage and mobile home parks and all kinds of other options that may decrease your real estate investment amount that's required, but increase your ability to get that visa and run a business that complements the real estate investing. Okay.
So the passive investments are out. You got to have something that's going to like it's more commercial, or that it's going to be more of an active business.
Right. No flipping. Flipping will not work.
Flipping doesn't work either.
Because that's just wholesaling. It's not going to work. Even if you do a lot, maybe if you did a lot of volume, then we could turn it into a business. And again, then it comes back to number 8, which we'll talk about, which is the business plan. And the business plan is the single most important document to prove that this whole model makes sense, and to show the immigration service why you need to have boots on the ground. Remember, if you're a passive investor, why do you need boots on the ground? We have to show why you need boots on the ground. So we have to be active. Cross-border tax guidance. I will not work with anybody anymore that has not spoken to, consulted with, gotten a memo from a cross-border tax advisor. And this is not somebody in your home country that says, oh, don't worry, you can invest in the US, or somebody in the US that says, invest in an LLC. That's the way to go for Americans, because that doesn't work for your home country. So you need somebody that understands the rules on both sides of whatever the border is, whether it's a land border or water border, whatever, okay? Number 4, the ideal structure. This is critical because, again, remember, your LLC in the US, it's not treated as an LLC. It's not treated as a corporate I'm sorry, it's treated as a corporation in Canada. It's taxed at the corporate level. So you don't want to use an LLC structure unless that LLC is owned by a holding company in the US. So that's why you need guidance from somebody like Scott or with the tax advice to complement the two, marry the two together, right? Asset protection.
So
I
let's
don't
just take
think
one quick pause there. So let's just recap for everybody here so we can get make sure everybody's following along. So what you guys we're talking about here so far is we're talking about needing to have $150,000 to $200,000 in an initial investment. You're looking to be able to place that money into real estate, but it has to be an active kind of real estate. You can't just do passive investing or just flipping. They're looking for something that's going to be a consistent business that also has a necessity or a legal reason to be able to say, hey, we need boots on the ground here. And then after you can decide on, okay, great, we got the money, we've identified what type of assets we're going to go into, then we need to start talking to our tax people. That's step number 3 is our cross-border tax guidance. And that's going to directly relate to how we're going to hold the business, right? Is that going to be what kind of structuring is going to be in place to be able to do that, whether it's going to be LLCs, limited partnerships, et cetera. And now we're going on to step number 5,
which is your step.
Which is the other pieces that are beyond just the entity structuring itself.
Right. Because without that, you're basically compromising whatever you've built wherever you are. And so it's super important to protect your business and family, to bring in somebody like Scott to guide this asset protection model. Without that, you may as well not even bother, because you're just risking whatever you've built, and it doesn't make sense. Number 6 is basically all the professionals that we bring in together, from the tax advisor to protect the real estate guide, to the financial advisor, to the CPA that's going to do your taxes and maybe help with your books. And, all of these professionals that are part and parcel of the investment portfolio and the investment plan and the strategy to go forward. And it's not like you can just have one and say, oh, I don't need the others. We recommend speaking with all of these professionals at the outset. Not that everybody's going to listen, but the more that you listen and the more that you consult, the better off your structure is going to be and the more successful your strategy will be. And that's really just like, I can't underscore that enough. Financing. So finance, you need, most clients are going to need financing, and the options are going to differ depending on if you're investing in residential, commercial, or whatever. And they're also going to differ depending on where you're from and what your experience is in the US. And also some people, so a lot of my clients actually joint venture. And as long as you own 50% or more of the business, you can still qualify for the investor visa. But the joint venture advantage is you might joint venture with somebody that's done a lot of US deals and already has a track record and history and credit, and you may be able to have lower interest rates. So consider those options as well when we're looking at financing. Business plan. So business plan, even though this business plan is specific to visas, I'm not going to suggest that I'm always going to suggest, I should say, that you go forward with develop a business plan, no matter if you're investing for the purpose of getting a visa or you're investing for the purpose of building wealth or whatever the case may be. Because if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. And I've been writing business plans for over 20 years. So I'm going to say every day of the week, a business plan is the #1 most important document, or a blueprint. It doesn't have to be a business plan. It can be a strategic plan, a business plan, some type of strategy, right, Scott?
That's right. You got to have a plan to be able to know where you're going to go. If you don't have a plan and you don't have professionals consulting onto that plan as you go, you're just not acting with the best advice. And I can almost guarantee that anybody that I've come across who has tried to just wing these kinds of things on their own, unless they're very, very experienced with it, almost always comes up with something that costs them more in the end. So if you're really already really experienced and you already have like great mentors and great people that have already done the thing that you're trying to do, fantastic. Then maybe you don't need to hire professionals to come into it, right? Because maybe you got people that can already help you with that and you're going to do a great job. But if you're anybody else that doesn't have that kind of network of people that have already done the thing that you're seeing how to do, that's why you hire professionals to help you come in and do the business plan, to do the consulting and make sure that this goes right, because you're almost definitely going to get it wrong otherwise.
And on top of that, my 4 favorite words are stay in your lane. And why are we gonna, we went to law school for a reason. I'm not gonna be, I'm not gonna be a tax accountant. Are you? Because that
No.
is not my core competency. If I'm gonna advise somebody on how to do their taxes, there's a problem. Okay. So the reality is that for all of us, we have to stay in our lanes. We are experts at what we do, and you, as a client, want to be the expert at real estate investing, at expanding your business, whatever the case is. But focus on what you do best, because that's how you're going to be successful and expand your and grow your business, right?
That's
So
right.
this is why the professional team can support you in all this other stuff that you need to focus on. There's a lot of different stuff. And back to the thing about the business plan. So, if we don't have a destination, it's like you get in your car and you say to the GPS, well, I want to go somewhere. Is the car going to take you anywhere? Not that the car takes you, but we have to put a destination in the GPS in order to get there. So if we don't have a plan, again, we're going to just be spinning around in circles and never getting anywhere. Legal guidance and protection, legal guidance and filing of petitions. So number 9 and 10 are definitely specific to the visa process. If you're doing a visa, you need that. We need to bring in, we bring in an expert immigration attorney. Yes, I am an immigration attorney, but I quarterback the process. So my legal team handles the immigration petition, the filing of that. They use the business plan as the basis and create a model around that to submit, usually to the consulate. And also the other piece that's really important is that every single dollar that you're investing, we need to be able to source that dollar. You can't say your Uncle Joe gave it to you, or you got it from a sale of a property in the UK, because that sale of the property in the UK, when did you buy that property? When did you sell that property? Where's all that documentation? Source of funds are critical, and especially these days, because you've got way too much money laundering going on. And last but not least, visa success, and also preparing for the renewal. So you can't just say, oh, I got the visa, I'm done. No, we have to figure out your strategy for what you do next. If you have a non-immigrant visa, do you want to transfer that to a green card? Do you want to transfer your temporary status, in other words, to permanent? Do you want to renew that visa eventually? Yes. Make sure you keep the business as a going concern. Work with us as a team so that we can keep things moving along nicely. So when it comes time to renew or extend to a permanent visa, you're ready at the door. You're not like, oh, I only have 2 months left and I'm going to be kicked out. I hear that like at least weekly. So these are my 10 steps to immigrate through real estate. And by the way, Scott, I think I invited you. I'm doing these regular webinars next February 10th at noon is my next webinar on how to immigrate through real estate. And they're extremely well attended. It's being very well received because people want to know another avenue to use their real estate investment to actually benefit them in terms of the ability to live and work in the US. And before I shut up, because I know I'm long-winded here, which is not my usual way, but I get excited about this. I will say one really important thing. This is, even if you get a visa, that doesn't mean you have to move. So many of my clients, especially in Canada, because there's so much back and forth, usually, not today, but usually, they get visas so that they have the freedom to go back and forth and not have to worry about it when they do come in for a trade show or to run an event or to visit their properties or whatever the case is. So just because you have that visa, this is a non-immigrant visa, does not mean that you have to move, but it gives you that freedom. And also, if you're in a challenging country where there could be, some type of unrest or something, not that there isn't here in America, but a more challenging country, let's just say, you have that in your pocket and you can use it when you need to. And if you need to get out, that's a perfect time to come.
I think it's a beautiful thing to do, is to always give yourself more options, and getting a non-immigrant visa sounds like a great thing to do in today's day and age, because you just never know when, another pandemic, or, just don't know what the next things are going to happen, like nobody saw a pandemic, really coming, right? But life is full of these kinds of things, right? So the more options that you can invest in to be able to, sure, it costs you money, right? But for that money, and you now have options, right? When the thing happens, and then people are gonna be like, well, how did you know to do that? Well, you actually didn't know to do that at the time. All you had to know when you did it was, I know that investing in options is important. And that's really the guys, when I look at the people that are truly rich, the people that are truly wealthy, that's the way that they think. they're not thinking in terms of just dollars. They're always thinking in terms of like, what options can I have given certain scenarios that are going to come up, so that way they can navigate in the best possible way. So that the old saying, right, is that like money doesn't actually make life like any actually that much better, but it does make it easier. And it's because
Easier.
you can invest in these types of things to be able to improve the quality of your life at that time. So Lauren, for everybody that looks to reach out to you, I know they got the webinar there. Do you have like, I know you have a great other resources or other ways for them to get in contact with you, get onto your newsletter or your mailing list? What's the best way for them
Absolutely.
to reach out and make sure that they're in contact with you?
Absolutely. So everything is branded with Lauren ESQ. And of course, I have my podcast, Investing Across Borders, which is on my website, laurenesq.com, which I don't even, we're still finalizing some of the details with that. But I have, cross-border, wait a minute, Creative Cross-Border Academy. That's one of my new websites that I just launched. Immigrate Through Real Estate, another one. eCouncil Global is my main portal, kind of my funnel for all of my opportunities. And you can reach out to me. I'm pretty popular on LinkedIn, Lauren ESQ. You can always find me. And please, I also am, I'll give you an access to this, to a download, Investing in Real Estate Across Borders for free. It's an ebook, it's $47, but I'll share it with you guys for free. And that's a great way to find out more about what I do and to set up a call to speak with me at your discretion to discuss options. I offer a 15-minute free consult to anybody that is interested in finding out more about your options to invest across borders and potentially get an immigration visa if you so choose.
That's awesome. Everybody, I'd say go ahead. And if you're listening to this podcast, if you're at all interested or think you might be interested in the future about this topic, is to reach out to Lauren, whatever the preferred medium is for you, that the way you like to do that. And just make sure you get onto her list. So that way you can stay a hold of, hey, when this is going to come, when it comes up for you in the future, you'll already have that in your contact, and you won't be thinking like, oh, shucks, like who was that again? Like, what was that podcast? Because you probably won't remember a year from now. So it's really important to get on the list to make sure that you have that reminder, that education, and just to make sure you're taking those next steps to move forward. So we have the links here that Lauren sent me. We're going to be posting that to everything that she just mentioned there for the ways to get to her ebook as well as to her other resources, and we'll have those inside of the show notes for everybody. So thank you guys so much for attending our podcast here today. If you are just listening to the podcast, go to the YouTube channel and subscribe to that and watch this on there. I would say you'd be well served to subscribe to Lauren's webinar and to be able to go to that webinar, attend that, and schedule that follow-up appointment to talk to her, because it's a free 15 minutes. There's no better education you can get than going into a really technical, information dense webinar, getting the general framework for it, and then talking to the actual professional to see how does that actually match up with your exact situation. And so we'll even have a complimentary exploratory call or discovery call that'll go directly to Lauren's calendar. So it really couldn't be easier to get the information and get a hold of Lauren and talk with her. So Lauren, is there any parting words you'd like to share with us before we wrap?
I'm just excited about all the things we're going to do together and all the people that we're going to help and impact. So I'm excited about the 2021. As a friend of mine started a mastermind, which I joined. It's called Get It Done in 21, and I love it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, life is all about partnerships, guys. It's the value. Your net worth is your network, right? And the more
So true.
The stronger your network is, the more powerful of a person you are. The more you can more easily you can navigate through life. So we're building a strong network here at Royal Legal, and Lauren's part of that network here to help us with these cross-border types of issues. So we're on our path to creating a one-stop shop for real estate investors everywhere in the United States and coming in internationally. And Lauren's an important part of that puzzle. So thank you, Lauren, so much for coming on the show. It's my pleasure to introduce you to everybody here at Royal Legal Solutions. And we look forward to working with you here in the future.
Thank you. I'll see you later for our consult.
Sure thing. Thank you, Lauren. Take care.
Ciao, ciao.